There's Megan doing some milking. When she brings that milk bucket back to the house, we're going to want to make sure that she doesn't slip on the ice and spill it all. That would be a waste. So right now our road is really, really icy. It's December, but it's warmed up and it's been raining. Seems to be happening more and more often in December, or even any time in winter more recently. But what that means is any snow that was on the road has melted. And then at night, if it refreezes into a pretty smooth sheet. It's a little better this morning than it was yesterday. But this gives me the opportunity to talk about how to kind of deal with these really, really icy conditions, whether we're talking about walking or whether we're talking about driving. Something that makes things extra difficult is when the surface of your road is uneven, right? There are bits of like ruts and there's potholes, so that when they turn to ice, then that ice has a slope to it. So if you're walking on it, it makes it that much easier to slip. And sometimes when you're driving on it, even if you have studded tires and you hit one of these potholes, it's going to slide you into the center of the pothole. Or if you are out of a rut and you catch one of the ruts with your tire, it's going to slide you into that rut, even if you have studded tires. It does happen with our vehicles that have studded tires. And so this is why I say every vehicle is a road maintenance vehicle. So if it's fall time and the first snows are falling and you're driving on that new snow, make sure not to follow in tracks of vehicles that came before you, because you want to compact that snow evenly across the road, as evenly as possible. And when people keep driving in the same tracks as the other people that have been driving on the road, it compacts that spot more than the spots around it. And those spots turn icier, and that ice is thicker and denser than the ice next to it. So if it warms up later on in the winter and you have a bit of a melting event like we have right now, that creates a really uneven road surface. Not only does that make it hard to drive, especially if you don't have studs, it makes it hard to plow when the next snow does come, because the plow truck is going to want to kind of ride closer to the edge of the road. But if there's all these ruts, it's going to suck the plow truck into the ruts, and you're only going to be able to plow the middle of it. So again, every vehicle is a road maintenance vehicle. And when you have that snow, compact that snow evenly across the road as much as you can. The only time that I ever drive in somebody else's tracks when there's fresh snow is if it's a blizzard with such poor visibility that the tracks are like the only thing that I can see. And if that's the situation, I probably shouldn't be driving to begin with. So that's kind of my pro tip, is don't drive in other people's tracks unless you have no other choice. You want to compact that snow evenly across the road. And there's Megan taking the milk back to the house. She's got the hay bag, and she's walking very gingerly because she's got two sets of boots. One that have cleats, the other doesn't have cleats. And I'm not sure why, but she was wearing her set that doesn't have cleats. But last night when we were going on our nightly walk, we were slipping around on this road. I just put my cleats on this morning, so let's talk about cleats. So these are the cleats that I am wearing right now. And you can see that they have these bits that really dig into the ice, but they also tend to fall apart because they've just got these wire hooks connecting everything to the strap. Well, these wire hooks don't always last. And so we're constantly like rewiring them up, because while these ones have the best grip, they often come apart. There's other brands, there's like Yak Trax, there's different styles, and we have a whole bag full of ice cleats of different kinds, so that depending on the ice conditions we can change them around. So here's a different kind of ice cleat. They've got screws kind of put into this, and you strap them on. Those are a bit sturdier. You got no little wire parts. There's more of those kind. Here's some kind that just like slip over your boots, and they've got these little bits to dig in. These kind are just constantly falling off. I don't like those. I like something with like a good strap that guarantees it stays on your foot. Because I can't tell you the number of times that we've lost little ones like this. They're almost not worth having. Now look at this beast of an ice cleat. It looks like tire studs in a way, the way that they poke out. It's got straps. It also has this big old cup going around the back of the heel. Make sure that the heel doesn't slip off. So these kinds are very heavy duty, and that's a good thing because you don't want these coming off and you want them gripping really well. So we haven't driven this truck in a few days because it's been really icy, and the truck has good tires, but they don't have any studs. So when it gets super icy and super slidey, we just are very selective about which vehicle we drive. So I had to drive to town yesterday, and I took our Jeep because it has studded tires with some pretty good studs on them. These have only been in use for like 2 seasons. They grip the ice really well. But we have the benefit of being able to choose which vehicle we drive when. And something that's really cool about where we live, in a sense, is that a lot of the places we go, we never even drive on pavement in winter. Because when you drive on pavement with your studded tires, it wears your studs down a lot more quickly. So we try to avoid using our studded tires on pavement. Sometimes it's unavoidable. We just try to minimize it, that's all. Our plow truck, an old square body, and we've got chains on this thing because sometimes you really need extra traction. And you can see actually there's a bunch of ice in these chains because this is what Megan has been driving around the neighborhood. Now these particular chains are the grabby kind, right? And then on the rear we have just regular chains that aren't the grabby kind. And again, you can see that they've been collecting ice. And when you look at where the plow truck has been driving, you can see that it does a really good job of chunking up the road. Actually, when it gets really slick, we sometimes will just drive the plow truck up and down the road to just kind of chunk it up a bit, and it actually improves traction. Now, obviously, this is not as preferable as sanding the road, but if you don't have access to sand, it's not too bad of another option. Similarly, you might have walkways, like, around your vehicles and places where if you don't have access to sand, they're going to be really slick, especially as you're getting in and out of vehicles. Now, like I noted, it's not as bad today as it was yesterday. In fact, some of this stuff is melting so much that we're almost back down to our bare gravel. But when you don't have access to sand, here's what you do. You scoop the ash out of your wood stove, and you just sprinkle it along your walkways. And it does a really good job of improving traction, actually. And something else that it does is that when the sun does come out, it absorbs more of that light, and it actually melts better. And so you've got these little areas where it's been melted lower down than the other areas, and that kind of creates more unevenness, which creates more grip. Now I'm putting ash between the other vehicles. I'm not really filming our vehicles. They're not much to look at. And you want to get like in front of your front steps and things like that. Now, apart from adding ash to your walkways, using studs and chains and ice cleats and sanding the road when you have access to sand, my final recommendation for dealing with icy paths and roads is that a lot of people don't like to keep ice cleats on their shoes because they get up, get out of their house, walk to their vehicle, and they don't want to have to take their ice cleats on and off. They think that's really inconvenient. But, a couple winters ago, I knew a lady who lived just up the road who slipped, hit her head really badly, had horrible, she had a traumatic brain injury from it, as she was getting out of her vehicle onto an icy driveway. Now, these are people who lived Off-grid. They had kind of a north-facing slope to their property, so it gets pretty icy, but also they cut their own driveway along that slope. And I'm not really sure about the particulars, but there's a good chance that when things warm up, that water flows across the driveway down the slope and then refreezes into a sheet of ice when it gets cold at night. So you got to be really careful if you're doing your own driveways and things like that. Make sure that you have proper drainage along the uphill side to divert the water away so that it doesn't flow across your driveway and refreeze. If you do not want to have ice cleats because you don't want to have to put them on and off when you're getting in and out of your car, my solution is to, so you can see I have my slip-on rubber boots. All that I do is I get in my vehicle, okay, I just take off my boot. I'm falling over because I'm trying to do this with one hand, okay. I get in, and because this, I just put my boot right next to my other shoe, okay, close the door, and guess what? I can drive with a stocking foot, and it works just as well. And then when I get out, I put my boot on the ground, and I put my foot in the boot, and voila. So I've just driven without having a cleated foot on the accelerator and the deceleratrix, or the brake pedal, and problem solved. So I can keep the cleats on the whole time, because some of the most dangerous times that people are injuring themselves, and I know people who've broken their arms and this and this and that, like, a lot of injuries happen slipping on the ice. And if you want to use your ice cleats when getting in and out of the car, which is one of the most common times to slip on the ice, just have a slip-on boot. You can slip it off when you get in, put it next to your foot, drive with a stocking foot on your right foot, and then put your boot back on when you get out. Done. Easy. Simple hack. Watch out. I'm also using this opportunity to try out some new boots that I got. These are some insulated XtraTufs, because I wanted to demonstrate some techniques for walking on icy paths and roads when you're not wearing ice cleats. Now, when I do this, I think about it as walking like a penguin. Because what you do is you take small steps. You might be a little bit duck-footed. Here, let me get on some ice. This is actually very uneven ice here. But you kind of take these little shuffle steps, but you also need to make sure that you're slightly hunched forward, because that puts your weight directly over your feet. If you're kind of leaning too far forward, you might fall forward, but if you're walking in an upright way, it's more likely that you're going to slip backward and fall on your head. So little shuffle steps, a little bit duck-footed, keep your feet pointed out tiny bit, and lean forward over your feet. And sometimes when it gets really bad, I actually do this, where I basically fake ice skate. I pretend like I'm wearing ice skates, and I just kind of actually never even lift my feet off the ground. I guess it's a little bit more like skiing in a way. I'm not a skier, but this, see, I'm just sliding my feet across right now. And that's what I do when it's really bad, so bad that I don't even want to lift my feet up. So here I'm walking along the road, and the road is icy, but I'm avoiding that by just walking on the snowy shoulder. If you can avoid walking on the ice altogether, that's a good strategy. You'll notice that the dog just employed the same strategy. To get to the ball, she ran over to the shoulder to get good grip, and then she went to get the ball. But yeah, so walking on snow is a lot easier than walking on ice. You can just walk. But this is a route that we walk regularly. Last night we were walking the dogs, and we come to this little area, and it's a lot better this morning than it was last night. What do you do when you want to cross a spot like this, but the trend in the ice is to go that way? And if you walk straight across, you're going to start sliding that way, just because of the slope of the ice. So what I do is I stay on the shoulder, and then I wait until I can face it completely in a perpendicular way, so that when I go across, there's not really any trend left or right. I might be going up a gentle slope, but I don't really have to worry about any left to right slippage. So then I just go straight across the road, and then I continue down the trail on some nice snow.